Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. We've compiled a list of the greatest business podcasts available. They've become much more accessible to listen to. Each episode is broken down into subsections. Use the contents areas links to get straight to the section you want. We're continuously searching for new ways to make learning easier for you. And we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd like to start with hearing a story from you. About a time when you were able to overcome adversity, and how did you come upon it? Well, as you may know, you have to be resilient if you want to be successful. You don't locate it until you're in desperate need of it. And in my situation, it all began with my kid, Evan. Evan is now 16 years old. But I sensed something wasn't right when I got pregnant. He'd like to kick me really hard. I just collapsed to the ground. He was going to be a soccer player, my doctor joked. He just cried the entire day and night. My husband left when he was 18 months old. As a result, I was a single mother. I'd just recently begun my consultancy profession. I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And things just got worse from there. When he was just 3 years old, his mother died. This is incredible, I know. He, on the other hand, attempted to murder me with a pair of scissors. He was also on his first antipsychotic medication. He was 4 years old at the time. He was impatient by the age of 7. He was admitted to his first psychiatric facility in Dallas. By 10 o'clock, he was back in the hospital. And it was at that time that I was diagnosed with a tumor. In the gland of my saliva. As a result, the right side of my face was affected. If you are entirely paralyzed, which happened 2 days later, my doctor told me that I scraped my cornea. Knowing my face would almost certainly not return, I also required a gold weight implanted into the crease of my upper eyelid. I also had a stitch in my bottom eyelid. And it was necessary for me to do so before I began a 6-week round of radiotherapy. So, the weekend before my eye surgery, I went to the movies. My hubby and I took a trip to Las Vegas. He'd gotten back on his feet after a motorcycle accident, chuckles. We also traveled to Vegas. I also took a tumble down a flight of stairs. I also broke my foot 4 times. After that, he fell off a ladder. His arm, ribs, and hip were all broken. As a result, it's basically been a continual state of much needed fortitude. Yes, that is a significant amount. By the way, my face returned. Laughter. So, gosh, that's a lot. And tell me how you developed your resiliency. The strength, the bravery, the feeling of thankfulness, the motivation to keep going such that you've been able to reach a suitable location? It's intriguing, you know. My backstory: I have a master's degree in organizational communication, as well as a bachelor's degree in communications. And, like you, I spent 20 years in the military, in the field of organizational development. As a result, training and professional development are essential. Communication, leadership, and emotional intelligence are all skills that may be learned. Lots of soft skill training, which leads to increased productivity. Then, after everything that had occurred, a few of other TEDx organizations approached me, requesting that I speak on their behalf. And then there's the subject of resiliency. Was exactly what they were interested in. They'd seen my videos on YouTube and had heard about me. Or by reading articles. As a result, they were interested in hearing about my experience. And this was the first time I'd ever told the story. In terms of adaptability, I'd explained it to you in terms of, every day, I was presented with opportunities to put what I was teaching into practice as a result of my son's predicament, and once I started looking into resilience research, I was hooked. In 2014, I noticed that there were a few problems that needed to be addressed. That I was doing on my own. I was able to create resilience without even realizing it. And there were other things I wasn't doing that were obstructing my capacity to develop those habits and abilities. As a result, I began studying neurology. Understanding since Evan's birth, I've been fascinated by the human brain, trying to figure out how to assist him. I've learned a lot in the process. But then I began to nerd out on the neurobiology of resilience in general. It's quite effective. It's one of those things, too, that the majority of people believe you have to wait till you really need it to improve the talents. In fact, it's the polar opposite. These are abilities, habits, and behaviors that you may grow proactively so you'll have them when you need them. What are some examples? One of the most effective strategies available when it comes to constructing those ahead of time? Things that appear to be common sense, to be precise. Self-care is extremely important, but it is not often practiced. And, folks always told me to be careful. I thought to myself, well, I'm raising, when Evan was 9 years old, I remarried. And I was thinking, so, I'll go ahead and do it. While I'm parenting 2 children, I'd like to go on a spa day, as well as managing a full-time business. I don't have time for that, And one thing I've discovered is that self-care does not have to entail a trip to the spa. You have a variety of tools at your disposal. It isn't, however, self-serving. It is a prerequisite for resiliency. My mother works as a flight attendant. She began when she was 51 years old. For 30 years, she worked as a court reporter. She went on to work as a flight attendant when she was 51 years old. She turned 70 in June and is still going strong. She's the one who makes all of these fantastic announcements. My favorite is the one for the oxygen mask. And she continues, if the cabin pressure suddenly drops, please put on your mask before assisting your youngster. If you're traveling with more than one youngster, keep this in mind. Please select your preferred option, or the one with the greatest chance of succeeding. No. But there's a reason. They say you should put on your mask first. And, it's wonderful to ponder, isn't it? I'll sleep when I'm dead, I guess. I don't have time to look for myself. I have to look after everyone else. However, life has a way of bringing you to a halt. Gratitude, mindfulness, humor, and social connection are all good things to have. Making sense of difficult circumstances, principles, and goals. These are a variety of tools that you can employ. To develop resiliency, you don't have to use all of them all of the time. However, having a weaponry is advantageous, or a tool set from which you can draw. So, if you're not going to the spa, what are you going to do? However, you are taking care of yourself. What were the things you discovered that made the world a better place? When you did them, did it make a difference? As a result, I was given a diagnosis of depression. I was 19 years old at the time. And I spoke with every doctor, therapist, and other professional I could think of. And you really need to exercise, he replied. And I said to myself, yeah, that's exactly what I don't want to do. I'm not an athlete, and I despise working out. But, enough people advised me to go ahead and do it. And there was a time when I was in such a dire situation. I was having a lot of trouble. It was following Evan's first stay in the hospital. I was having a hard time. My husband was then involved in a motorcycle accident. I was really befuddled. We also relocated to a new neighborhood. They had a pool that was junior Olympic size. As a result, I began swimming 4 times a week. And I noticed a significant change in my mood. The medications remained unchanged. The only thing that had changed was the workout. So that was one of the things that completely astounded me. I was saying it all the time, I am unable to exercise due to a lack of time. But, I always had time to watch Law and Order. I enjoy SVU because I enjoy crimes, especially those that are very horrible. But it made a significant impact in terms of sleep. It's become a non-negotiable for me now. I don't do well when I don't have a lot of time. A good night's sleep is 7 to 8 hours. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. I rarely leave the house without it. Okay. So, exercise and sleep are two important factors. When it comes to self-care, it's important to remember to take care of yourself. What other ideas do you have? Sleep, exercise, and a healthy diet are all important components of a healthy lifestyle. Those are all critical considerations, to be sure. It doesn't have to be those though. It can take up to 10 minutes to sit with someone and cuddle your dogs while sipping coffee before taking a glance at social media. Self-care could be as simple as taking a shower. As if you didn't have your lunch at your desk, it could be as simple as making a strategic stop. While going about your day and taking 3 deep breaths, it could be extending the same grace to yourself. You'd show your best friend the same kindness and care you'd show your best friend. It could be that you're not shooting at yourself. We should have done it, and I should have done it. This is something I should do. I'm supposed to be here. That's what I should be. And we keep shooting at ourselves all day. You know what? Self-care is on the rise. I'm allowed to be human and realize that I'm enough. So there are a lot of subtle things you can do. That makes a significant impact. As a result, we sort of zoom in to the world of professional work. Many of the slights, transgressions, and challenges are familiar to you. We don't have to deal with anything like as difficult as many of the issues you dealt with. Nonetheless, we can feel threatened, as you know. I've been attacked, I'm stressed out, and I'm freaking out over things. Could you tell us a little bit about it? What is the source of this, and what should we do about it? As a result, our brain is a very remarkable organ. Right. It has progressed through 3 stages of development. The first is a simple case of snake brain. Your reptilian mind, if you will. It's all about heart rate, breathing, and respiration, as well as fight or flight. It's simply your brain's most rudimentary portion. The next evolutionary step lies buried away in the recesses of your mind. It's known as the limbic system, and it contains the hippocampus, as well as the hypothalamus and amygdala. As a result, it's made up of a variety of components. However, it serves as an emotional control center. It's where you get all of your feelings. It's where you keep track of your routines and recollections. The neocortex is the most recent evolution. It protects the brain's outer layer. Nonetheless, the prefrontal cortex in particular, just behind your brow, and it is this region of the brain that distinguishes us in comparison to the rest of the animal kingdom. We are the only species capable of thinking about our way of thinking. It is from here that creativity and invention emerge. It's where higher-order thinking, problem-solving, and other skills are developed. Decision-making, cause-and-effect relationships, and attention management. All of the difficult things stems from emotional regulation. As a result, it's clear that our brain will accept anything we think, speak, or do the same thing over and over, and turn it into a mental shortcut that becomes a habit, as a result of which it does not have to work as hard. It's similar to driving in the express lane, it's only faster. So, if you're listening to this right now, for example, isn't it true that you cross your arms? Cross your arms if you're a listener. Cross them again, but this time in the opposite direction. You probably noticed that the second time was a little more awkward than the first. And it's because of those 2 events. From various portions of your mind. When you crossed your arms for the first time, it originated in your limbic system. When you're chilly, you've done it a million times. Whatever you want while you're angry. It originated from your prefrontal cortex the second time. You have to put in a little more effort. And what if you did it all day, every day? Or over a long length of time, and you were supposed to put that into practice, that would soon become a habit. Every day, habits account for about 45% of what we do. And our brain is reliant on these mental shortcuts. To make our lives easier, however, it has no idea which habits are beneficial to humans, or which of our habits is causing us harm. It only takes the way we think or act on a regular basis and transforms it. So that's one, it's understanding which habits, are harmful to your health. Do you experience anxiety as a result of an anxiety disorder? Or are you worried since it's something you've done before? Are you concerned because there's anything legitimate going on? It's so difficult that you don't know where to start. Or are you concerned since it's become a habit? As a result, our lives fall into a routine. If we're not careful, we'll end ourselves living on autopilot. The brain's second test comes in the form of a mental task. Is that we suffer from a condition known as negativity bias. It's also a rudimentary built-in protection system. So that if you were being pursued by predators, you would be able to. That message was encoded very effectively in your brain. To ensure your safety, as well as the fact that you were far more capable to detect the charging saber-toothed tiger than you've arrived to the lovely flower that's the person who's standing next to you when you make your way down that route, it was also constructed as a safeguard. Unfortunately, as we've progressed, the brain is always on the lookout for hazards. As a result, it exaggerates threats. It undervalues possibilities. It's like Velcro in that it accentuates the bad. It's like Teflon in that it dilutes the positive. So that we can alter the way our brain is wired, refers to as experience-dependent neuroplasticity. It's essentially a fancy way of saying whenever you have a good experience, or an experience you'd like to remember a message that is as powerful as a negative message, you'll have to think about it for a while. As you would with the negative one, we go over the unpleasant aspects again and again. On our minds over and over again, but when someone compliments us, we're like, thank you, it's nothing. Rather than occupying that space, and I enjoy the feeling of thankfulness that comes with it, or what I refer to as delicious moments when you have them. So, it's a delectable moment. We all grew up reading these fairy tales. Or read them to our children, all of which end with, they married and had a happy life together. Then you get divorced or lose your job. Or you are the parent of a sick child, or something happens that makes you feel, well, that's fantastic, I've failed miserably. At this whole adulting business, without comprehending that happiness is not a constant state. It happens in microseconds, blips, and seconds. And the majority of us are overworked, concentrating on locating a consistent condition of things that we miss those delicious moments, as I like to call them. It's the first sip of coffee in the morning, and it's delicious. It's a fantastic hug, it's a delectable meal. It's a belly laugh you can't stop having, this is a fantastic audio interview. It's merely a fleeting time to appreciate, I jot down my ideas and put them on paper, I either photograph it or scribble it on a cocktail napkin. Or scribble it on a post-it note I strewn them throughout my workspace. On these colossal corkboards, because each time you discover something new, that makes you feel like you're in the moment. A dopamine squirt is what it's called. You have that moment every time. For example, I gave a talk in Fort Worth yesterday. I was speaking on behalf of approximately 3,000 teachers and educators. And finally, at the conclusion of the speech, I received a fantastic standing ovation. And for me, that was such a lovely time, I felt as if I had made a significant influence, and I believed I had. I truly belonged, and I was exactly where I needed to be. As a result, I took out my phone, I snapped a quick photo of the audience and printed it. It will be posted on my bulletin board. Alright, how did that make you feel? Well, I was pleased with myself. I felt like I was making a genuine difference. As well as contributing, I felt like I was repaying the favor. All of the teachers that have aided us on our journey, and where did I get that feeling? I got goosebumps because I felt it in my gut. And the hair on the back of my neck told me. And just sitting in it for 20 seconds is plenty. Is sufficient to embed it in the neural network, as much as the unpleasant occurrences that occur. With the self-doubt and self-talk that is negative. However, we must exercise caution about balancing out so much negativity with the introduction of a more targeted approach. While looking for the positive, then you begin to teach your brain to look for the positive. In many scenarios, as a result, the more you do it, the more you discover. The more time you spend being grateful, the more grateful you will become. And why are you sitting in that? And how am I going to tell you about it? And how might I improve someone's day as a result of it? All of these are things that you can experience if you sit in them. You begin to recircuit your brain after just 20-30 seconds. What fires together, they say, wires together. The more time you spend doing these things, the better. That will increase resiliency, the more probable it is that your brain will shut down. A completely different path from the one intended, or where it might go if left to its own devices. Now I'm considering a work situation. I believe a little occurrence could occur. After that, it's only a matter of ruminating, going over it again and again. Let's say, alright, hey, you became preoccupied and didn't complete a task. Someone from another department had inquired of you. Possibly once or twice. It wasn't a top priority for you. Then that same person has the audacity to email you once more. CC your boss as well. Then you think to yourself, oh my god, this jerk. What's more, guess what? I'll attend to it as soon as possible. But, as you may be aware, if it was that important, you could have called me. I would have addressed it then. My supervisor now considers me to be a yokel. Who doesn't, check his emails or something? So your mind can just spin around and do a small thing. So, what do you suggest if you find yourself in this situation? When things aren't going well, what's the best way to get out of there and start rewiring? As a result, your brain is oblivious to the distinction. A saber-toothed tiger or a nasty email are the two options. Your brain distinguishes between perceived and real risks. In the same way, and what happens in your limbic system is this: inside your reptilian mind, cortisol, adrenaline, and other stress hormones are produced by the amygdala. All of these neurochemicals, noradrenaline and norepinephrine, are noradrenaline and norepinephrine. They are sucking 20% of the blood out of your brain, inserting them in your limbs, as well as your heart, so that you have the option to fight, freeze, or flee. And, despite the fact that this is a really primitive, it hasn't changed in terms of neurological response. As a result, whenever you are, one is to understand what sets you off. And to be biologically, mentally, and physiologically conscious what has sparked your interest, because you've been emotionally hijacked when that happens. Your lid is flipped up. Your ability to reason is thrown out the window. As well as our emotional brain, that limbic system is 80,000 times faster than the rest of the brain. Then the intellectual system, then the prefrontal cortex. The first step is to recognize that you've been hacked. Do you have sweaty palms? Do you have a tendency to clench your shoulders? Do you ever feel nauseous? For example, where are you, and what has happened to you? That informs you when you've been triggered. For example, for some folks it's a visceral, gut-wrenching experience. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. It's as though my neck just tightens when I'm around other people. My hands are sweating too. It's realizing that it's happening, whatever it is for you. It's the initial stage in the process. The second step is to allow yourself to feel. Whatever feeling is elicited as a result of the situation. The majority of us despise being in the spotlight. In distressing emotional states, as a result, we strive to either ignore or suppress our feelings. Alternatively, we try to imitate it by flipping it, which doesn't work. Emotions are the result of a neurobiological process. You have no influence over them. It's the equivalent of putting your hand on a hot stove. You'll immediately regain control of your hand. Without pausing to consider, ooh, that's hot. It's possible that I shouldn't touch it. The similar thing happens in your head. So, in the areas where you do have control of this technique of emotional control is the notion that arises as a result of this, of that feeling. Assume that the first step is the trigger. Bob wrote me a second email, which was copied to my supervisor. It really irritated me. Anger and hurt are such emotions. And a smidgen of terror and humiliation, that's something you can't change. Bob is a jerk, is the thought process. He tried to embarrass me on purpose. As a result, you get an answer. Probably defensive, closed off, and irritated. This, in the end, has a negative result. The trigger is beyond your control. You have no control over your emotions. You do, however, have control. You have control over how you view the circumstance. Rather than saying, Bob is a jerk, say, Bob is a jerk. I'm curious whether Bob has anything personal going on. And it wasn't his intention to do so. Because he's under the gun, he merely imitated my boss. On a plethora of competing priorities, or, maybe this is the third time. I've already missed a deadline, and Bob is running out of time. He's getting a little tired of it with me. It's all about how I interpret something in a different way. As a result, my conduct changes. Whatever the case may be, it's all about paying attention to how your mind takes over. After that, you'll need to perform several things to get unhijacked. Take 3 deep breaths from your abdomen, for example. Reset your nervous system as a whole. It reactivates your prefrontal cortex. As a result, when you're annoyed or angry, or when you're reading an email. Email apnea is a term coined by Arianna Huffington. When you stop breathing while reading an email, you've done something wrong. Which I believe we've all accomplished. Take 3 deep breaths from your stomach. Will restore your access to the internet. Counting backwards from 10 or 20 is a fun way to pass the time. Will restore your access to the internet, you have to go to the prefrontal cortex, because you have to. To be able to reach higher order thinking in the third person, you're talking to yourself. Strangely enough, a way to get you back online has been discovered. So, and you've got this. You'll figure it out eventually. Unless your name is N, that is. After that, you should change your name. But there are certain things you can do about it. To recover after being kidnapped, all you need to know is that it's happening. That's all right. Yes. So there you have it. I'm with you. So you've arrived, you've pulled the trigger. You'd elicited an emotional response. Then there's the idea of sort of feeling it, which I appreciate. And recognizing it in terms of, okay. This infuriated me. It gave me the impression that I didn't have my act together. When I am completely self-assured. So there we have it in terms of breaths. Or going backwards in time, and regaining control of the situation. The prefrontal cortex is located in the frontal lobe of the brain. However, this isn't always the case. Here's how it goes. Most of the time, they think I don't have my act together, oh. Now I'm feeling insecure. Is it possible that I don't have my act together? What are people's opinions of me? What are others' impressions of me? What does my supervisor think now? That I'm not keeping up with everything? Is it possible that I'll lose my job? What will happen next? Is it possible that I'll be humiliated? Are they going to start down this road with us? It's pretty common to get yourself in one of these negative spirals. But if you don't catch yourself and stop it, it will continue. And redirect your focus, which is why mindfulness is such a great tool. You'll be locked in that habit cycle for the rest of your life, if you don't do something about it. As a result, it becomes a mental shortcut. And you begin to think in that manner. So, let's speak about mindfulness for a moment. In terms of the behaviors themselves, it makes a distinction. What difference does it make then? Sure, I used to believe that mindfulness was a good thing. Was the silliest thing imaginable. For me, exercise and mindfulness were the devil. Laughter, I was thinking to myself, neither of these things are on my to-do list. It makes no difference to me how helpful they are. The research, on the other hand, does not lie. Mindfulness, for example, has a lot of research backing it up. We spend 47% of our waking hours thinking. Something unrelated to what we're doing right now. If your listeners are behind the wheel, they've considered many signals they've observed. If your audience is seated at their desk, they're probably checking a couple of emails. Perhaps they're on their phone or simultaneously checking their Facebook feed. Controlling our attention is quite tough for us. And mindfulness is nothing more than brain training. To assist you in maintaining control over what you pay attention to. So, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, It's identifying it, sitting in it, and saying, so, what exactly am I feeling? Allow me to experience it, and then move on. It could be that you're meditating. And I felt like I was playing whack-a-mole with this. With my own ideas, everyone told me how zen like this was supposed to be, so I went with it. And that wasn't for me, so I got down to business. And understood it wasn't supposed to be like this. It's even referred to as your monkey brain by Buddhist monks. Your monkey brain is malfunctioning in a number of different directions, and whenever you see your monkey scurrying around, you bring it back and concentrate on your breathing. You're teaching your brain to concentrate on one thing at a time. It should be centered where you want it to be. It doesn't go where it's supposed to go. Every night before I go to bed, I meditate. This has the effect of expanding the gray matter. In your head, exercising helps too. It is accomplished through yoga. It is accomplished through sleep. And your gray matter is the part of your brain that is gray. That is in charge of emotional regulation on the control of attention. It's also the region of your brain that's been harmed by stress. So, what is mindfulness? It's not touchy, fluffy, or feely in the least. It certainly could be, but for me, it's all about paying attention to where you'll be when you arrive. If you're lying on the couch late at night, with your loved ones, are you all glued to your televisions and phones? If you're having a meal, are you paying attention to the flavor and texture of the food? You'll be sitting in the present if you do that. Instead of becoming enraged while stuck in traffic, taking a few deep breaths, okay, this is a good start. I have time to reflect about the events of the day. I'm sure I'll be able to get through it so that when I go home, I can relax. I have the ability to select my mood. It can happen to anybody, anywhere, at any moment. It's simply a matter of returning to the present moment. And it isn't relaxing or soothing in the least, laughs, it is not this belief that is the problem. We have a picture of the ideal yogi. It's just a matter of being deliberate. Consider where you'd like to focus your attention. If you're hunkering down for a meditation session, how do you go about approaching that? The magical number is 9 minutes, for starters. If you can meditate for 9 minutes every day, you'll be okay. You're going to change your mind. So, because I didn't know how to do it, I downloaded an app. So, whether you're utilizing an app or not, it's truly up to you. Or if it'll be posted on YouTube as well as receiving a guided meditation, I recommend learning how to do it first, and then following that lead. And your mind can be unruly at times. It's quite useful because it's so busy to have someone else's voice guide you. So, there's strength in numbers. If you have access to a meditation facility, take advantage of it. Personally, I enjoy being alone. It's hardly rocket science, and it's both difficult and simple. And it's really just concentrating on your breathing. To begin, take a few long, deep breaths. And just try to find your center. A body scan is recommended by several programs. You can either feel like your head, or you can feel like your body. You begin at the very top of your head and enjoy it. Relaxation will run down your forehead and eyes. Your nose and mouth were both relaxed. And I'm the only one who sees it as this morning blue light is all around me, and I enjoy it. Keep an eye on it as it passes through my head, neck, and shoulders. And down to my toes, as well as my sternum and stomach. That's one approach to stay in the moment. Because you're preoccupied with your own body. Then you sit in solitude, concentrating just on your breathing. And your thoughts will wander all over the place. So, what are we having for dinner? What causes the itching in my leg? I didn't remember to pick up the dry cleaning. Oh no, I forgot to send so-and-so an email. That's just normal, it's what it's designed to do. However, you train yourself to return to your breath. It is a type of brain training developing your ability to manage your focus. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.